In this episode, I'm going to share with you my new supernatural voice. Part 2. My miracle voice. I have a supernatural voice. I speak without the use of vocal cords. This is not a known alternative speech production process. My voice was given to me by the Lord Jesus Christ. You will learn by watching my testimony that my voice is different to any voice known to you. I lost the use of my vocal cords and my ability to speak after an operation in 2012. I taught myself to communicate by making sucking sounds as my way of alternative speech. I remember that I was doing very well in only a few weeks of training myself. I believe that this option as an alternative speech must not be excluded from the lists of alternatives, but to be embraced as a way to further explore. In the previous episodes, I shared with you the techniques that describe the birth pains of my new supernatural voice. This will provide you a huge amount of insight and with a base knowledge that will assist you to be able to comprehend my new miracle voice. I was told by a professor that I will never be able to speak again. I taught myself to communicate by producing sucking sounds. To be able to communicate at that time, the laryngeal nerves that is connecting my vocal cords were permanently damaged. The superior laryngeal nerve is a branch of the well-known cranial nerve number 10, the vagus nerve. The superior laryngeal nerve consists of two branches. The internal laryngeal nerve, which is the sensory nerve, which supplies sensory fibers to the laryngeal mucosa. The external laryngeal nerve, which is the motor nerve, which is responsible for the involuntary motor coordination. These two nerves controls vocal fold movement. The damage to this highly complex nervous system caused me to suffer permanent nerve paralysis. I decided to make it my passion to find out what potential I do have within my own body. About 4 months after the operation, something happened that changed everything. That opened up new possibilities and changed my life forever. It was a very difficult time. I was battling to cope while receiving 30 days of chemotherapy and radiation. The morning of the 30th of July 2012, the morning of the 30th of July 2012, my wife's birthday, and the morning that I had to start with chemotherapy and radiation treatment. The lift fell, yes, the lift fell with my wife and I when we traveled between 2 floors in the oncology building. A while later, while I was receiving chemotherapy, my wife was being tested for back injuries. Luckily, she was sent home with some pain medication. I will share with you more about this experience in a later episode. I want to share with you my supernatural voice and how God gave me this special voice. This is not a normal voice. A normal voice requires the use of vocal cords to produce sound vibrations. I have no approved medical background or any medical qualifications. What I have is limited to my own body, based on how I think, hear, feel and experience my own body functioning processes. At that night, way back, August 2012, the day that I was told that I will never be able to speak again, I made a covenant with the Lord Jesus Christ. I asked him that if he gave me a new voice, I would sing for him and I would speak his word. Take note, I asked the Lord for a new voice. I didn't ask him to restore and heal my existing voice. In the back of my mind, I kept hearing the professor saying, never. Well, if my past voice will never speak again, which I sort of had peace with, what alternative was there? I was trusting God for a new voice. At that time, I had no understanding to the complexity of my request. After the covenant date, I created two sounds, the one after the other. I was in tears. It was so painful, a very emotional moment. I had absolutely no idea where those two sounds came from. I tried more, even more determined than earlier, but nothing. The next morning I tried again. I endured so much pain that every now and then the tears would run down my face. I didn't stop trying. Much later that day, I made 3 more sounds. The next day, I made 5 sounds. Tears were bursting out my face. This was a painful discovery, but I refused to give up. Every day, I was able to make more sounds. The sounds were unrecognizable, and they were rough, and it came from deep within. I had to use an enormous amount of muscle power to force out those sounds. Every day, my family would lock me up inside the house and leave for work, only to find me in bed every evening on their return. Many days, I wasn't able to drag myself to the toilet. I was too weak to get myself out of bed. A much challenged period. I had to place myself in a 1-year-old baby's world, with the possibility and equal potential of learning how to speak. One major difference: my words came with tremendous discomfort and pain, and with a lot of emotional experiences. With normal speech, sounds vibrations is generated by the use of vocal cords. The vibration sounds is transformed within the entire inner chamber. Transformation by the glottis, the epiglottis, the walls of the oropharynx, the uvula, the nasopharynx, and the mouth, which includes the tongue, teeth, and lips. My sounds came from another deeper source. Made no sense at all. I realized without the 2 most important words, you cannot speak. If you don't have the words mama or papa or dada in your vocabulary, you will not be able to speak. It is not a coincidence. I have proved this fact. I brought forth speech with such effort, discomfort, and indescribable pain, and found it so extremely difficult to express myself. More than that was the hostility that I had to endure from my wife and 2 sons. I never shed more tears during those 3 months than the rest of my life. with the tremendous amount of force and effort needed to produce words and sentences, every sound came out very aggressively. My face also showed and underlined my pain in expressions. I was unable to defend myself, to explain what I had experienced. Every time I opened my mouth, I met opposition and rejection because of my unexplainable behavior. The more that I tried to explain, trying to defend my strange behavior, the more I was told that I was aggressive. I was told, listen to yourself. Your face and your body showed the same aggression. I was devastated. When I greeted them, my behavior displayed aggressiveness. When they brought me something to eat or drink, my behavior displayed aggressiveness. When I said goodbye in the mornings, my behavior displayed aggression. I found myself in a very lonely place, sort of excluded from the rest of my house because of my disability and the limitations that I had to endure. I can't recall once that my wife or two sons sat on my bed to share a conversation with me during that period. I so much wanted them to just tell me their stories. I would have been happy just to listen. My general response to their questions were not much of an invitation to further communicate with me. Our communications were very basic, something like, hello, hello, how are you? Okay, how are you? Okay. Should the conversation extend any further, I would experience hostile opposition. With the effort that was needed to produce sounds, words, and sentences accompanied with pain and discomfort, I could not incorporate emotion into my sound produced. It came out too rough. After 3 months, I was ready to give up for the third time. For the third time, I told Jesus to take his voice back. I didn't want it anymore. I was ready to go back to the way of sucking sound production. During that time, I felt a lot safer. I didn't have to face continuous opposition. I experienced compassion and empathy from my family, which disappeared when my aggressive new kind of speech. My thinking was, Lord, you gave me this voice. Please take it back. I didn't want it anymore. It didn't work for me. The next morning, when I checked again, the voice was still there, and it was still with the same aggression. I was really waiting for this voice to go away. I was so disappointed, but God was not going to allow me to derail or to change his plans. Why would he? Our Majesty changed his mind for me when the Bible tells us that he's always the same, yesterday, today, and forever. His purpose manifested through me, which form all part of his greater plan he had for me. What I also found from the beginning was a strange phenomenon. I found the sound that I produced came from deep within. The effect my mouth had in altering the final sound was very limited. My mouth's role to alter the final outcome of the sound production was very limited. At first, it was a bit freaky. Was it a kind of ventriloquism? How does ventriloquism work? I had no idea. Since I was a child, I always wanted to be a ventriloquist. It looked like such fun. The morning this reality opened up in front of me, I knew that my way of speech was a kind of ventriloquism. I was in the clouds and full of joy, and at the same time I was filled with many emotions. I realized I have sinned against the Lord, the Creator. I learned later a ventriloquist uses his vocal cords to generate sound production. My vocal cords were inoperative. In my next video, I will share with you an even greater mystery. I'm going to go another step deeper of what happened next with my alternative sound production. I thank you for taking the time to watch this episode of my testimony. I trust that you are a little more enlightened and that you will also follow the next part of my testimony. That is coming soon. This is going to be super awesome, and I can't wait to share with you another supernatural experience. I want to leave you with this promise. The Bible tells us in Deuteronomy 31:8, it is the Lord who goes before you. He will be with you. He will not leave you or forsake you. Do not fear or be dismayed. God promised that He goes before us. He's always waiting for you on your arrival. He will be with you and will not leave or forsake you. He's always with us. He has written you and me into His story. We are part of His divine story. Have you made Him part of your story? If not, I invite you to do so. Therefore, may God bless you all. Till we meet again, and goodbye.